Hey, Thomas. Yeah, little bonus times tonight. I don't know. I got new LEDs and I'm excited to play with them. And I feel like that's normally a thing I would do on these streams. So yeah, I figured I would just literally had done zero planning. I pulled the things out and I figured I would turn them on and just see what happens. Let's see here. I'm going to adjust the exposure on the camera here just a little bit so we can see this a little better. Maybe roll this over a little bit here. There we go. All right, that's pretty good. It's like a weird shadow over here, and I'm not sure why, but that's not a biggie. Ugh. Yeah, lots of tummy cam, lots of shenanigans tonight. Probably, hopefully, not another 4-hour extravaganza. That was a lot. Fire? This is, to be totally candid, like, that's part of the reason to do this on on camera, right? So like if it does catch fire, at least I have, video evidence of what the heck happened. Oh, hello, wife.
Catch fire.
No, it's not nothing will catch fire. We're being very safe. I have a fire extinguisher right there. Well, I've been called out, as it were. But yeah, these are I'm just going to get into it. I don't know, I see Thomas is with us, at least for now. I don't know if anyone had previous plans or whatever. It doesn't really matter. We'll see who else joins us. Maybe nobody. Maybe nobody will be watching at some point, and you will watch this after the fact and enjoy it for what it's worth. But these are the new LEDs I got today. They claim to be Cree. Given how cheap they were, I don't think they're genuine Cree diodes, or if they were, they probably fell off a truck somewhere. These are from AliExpress. The reason I got these to play with, so they claim to be 12 volt forward voltage or so, 10 watt LEDs. They're single chip, right? So they're not the sort of 3-up style. I don't know that I have any loose ones anymore. I think they've all gone into lights. Oh, here's one, right? So previously we've been using this 3-up style with 3 discrete LEDs on one star, which is fine. It makes it a little bit harder to lens, and this is a 25 millimeter star, right? So it's an inch across. Turn the exposure down a little bit. So like I said, I literally was like, maybe let's just see how things go if I just turn things on and go. So not a lot of planning. But these, which are really nice, they're from LED Supply. They're really high quality. They're really good color rendering. I had forgotten, to be perfectly honest, I had originally gotten these when they were on like wicked clearance for like $1 a piece, which is, that's not nothing, but like, I think about a 10 pack for $10 plus some shipping, totally fine. They normally retail for like $8 a piece, and that makes them more, by cost, like easily the most expensive part of the light, maybe more than the rest of the light put together, depending on how you're pricing things out. Like, that's just silly. So, what's happening here? There we go. So I thought it'd be worth experimenting with some cheaper options from the interwebs, just to see like if there is a cheaper option that honestly it's nice that it's a little bit smaller too, so it might fit better within the body of our light. I thought I would just play with it, and because I was like, hey, I'm just gonna like whip the camera on and see what happens as we explore these. So they come in these like, clearly they were panelized for fabrication, and they're semi-broken apart and semi-not. So I'm gonna just sort of snap one off here. If these do work well, if these seem promising, I'll make sure that like somewhere this option is listed. Probably when I put up the modified build instructions for version 0.95, I'll just include this in that. So that's a 16 millimeter star, 16 millimeter diameter across that. And if memory serves, there were options for like with this same emitter with different diameters of PCB. And I chose, this was a couple weeks ago, right, because these came slow from AliExpress. If memory serves, I got the biggest one that I could. So still smaller than what we've been working with, but the idea is that's more surface area to stick on a heatsink. And we'll see how that goes. So speaking of heatsink, for the sake of experimentation tonight, I'm not gonna, the one thing we might do if these seem to work well, is put them on the kind of size of heatsink that we would normally put inside the little tiny moving lights, just to see if that's sufficient for these when they're pushing out something close to their maximum wattage. For now, I am just going to stick it to this big, this is a I think I got this for $1 at a swap meet at one point. It's an old computer style heatsink. Oh yeah, look, it's still got the sticker on it. It's kind of gross because the last time I did this, I used heatsink compound, and so it's all over my desk now. So I'm going to be using the thermal adhesive tape that we've used before this evening just to keep things a little bit neater. Wow, that's going to be all kinds of gross, huh? Yeah, it's I don't much anymore, but I for a couple of years, my sort of main nerdy hobby was building amateur radios and amplifiers, like designing from scratch and building on perf board and copper clad 7 megahertz and 14 megahertz communications radios. And so I would go to these ham radio swap meets that they have, mostly, well, I guess sort of around the calendar year here in Chicago. I guess I should solder some wires onto this before we get into attaching it to the heatsink, because that'll only make our lives harder. Got a bit of wire there. So I'd go to these swap meets and not really knowing what I was going to do with them. You see a big heatsink like this for $1. It's like, well, that's, I do things with light and heat sometimes. Maybe I'll need that someday. And it really has paid off. Swap meets are not so much of a thing right now, but I have this container of, I don't know, 3 or 4 big ones and a bunch of little tiny ones that are great for stuff like this. So it's like, I don't know what my final size requirements are going to be, but I need a big heatsink to prevent fire things happening. So that's all coming very handy. Just grabbing some soldering supplies off on the side here. The wall O'Toole, as my soldering iron's heating up, I can show you just over my shoulder here. I have a great way to see it. Maybe this is the best view to see. The wall of accessible tools is growing. With the jig is up there. The breadboard wires are now in a spot in the wall. The new logic analyzer I got, it has its own spot in the wall now, which I'm very excited about working with. Because I've been using a really dinky, super inexpensive logic analyzer, and with the way the Pocket RDM project is going, I need an actual one. So an actual one, you could certainly spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a logic analyzer. What I got was a DS Logic unit, which is one of these little guys. You plug into via USB-C. It's got ports on the other side for your probes, and you plug it into your computer and use software to access its data acquisition functions. So it's not the most fully featured in and of itself, but the other one I had was just sort of failing. It wouldn't stay connected for more than a couple minutes, and then it would reset, and I'd have to redo all my data capture settings and various. So hopefully this will be somewhat more reliable. That's really the only thing I want from it. Just gonna tin these wires here. This is I'm sure I've talked about this before. This is a useful technique for soldering to things that are small and finicky, which is just tin both of them, apply a little extra flux, and then put them together and put the iron on it. It's sort of the opposite of what you would, or what you're supposed to do when soldering, right? You don't put the solder on the part, don't put the solder on the iron, get it good and fresh. But in this case, the parts are so small that to try and hold the part and the iron and the solder and the other fiddly part is just too much. So if you tin them both, and if you put a little flux on there, either liquid or rosin or whatever you have, that makes sure that your joint is still kosher. Well, that's a pretty sloppy soldering job, but it's just for experiment's sake. So we'll slap this on here. Make sure that's good and adhered, and then I'm just gonna, just in case I bump the wiring, I'm just gonna sort of wrap it around here a little bit just to give that a little bit more stability. And I think we're basically ready to go. I mean, like I say, I don't think this is going to be another 4-hour marathon of an evening talking about tiny moving lights. I'm I'll just a little bit of time, hook the thing up, turn them on, see what happens, share with y'all. I'll grab my leads from my bench power supply here. not this particular bench power supply, but the previous one that I had. He said as he's just checking some settings related to the stream real quick. I actually still have this older one too, but it's a little bit broken down. I actually got my first bench power supply at a swap meet as well, for like $15. It was super cheap, and it lasted me 4 or 5 years. And when it died, I was like, okay, well, that's clearly a tool that I use a lot. I'm going to now purchase myself like a $60 or $70 equivalent, because I know it's something that I will use. All right, so I'm just adjusting my current limits here, and should be quite low. In fact, they're low enough that the power supply is bottoming out, which is sort of what I want. So we'll apply some current there, and then we'll just turn the current limit up ever so slowly. There we go. All right, so once again, we're gonna have the issue of how do you capture a light source on camera. But so far, it's a good sign. So this is currently showing a forward voltage of approximately 12 volts. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna turn the exposure back down. That'll help some. And about 250 milliamps, a quarter of an amp. So this is about 4 watts currently. Yeah, well, I mean, success. And it's not a bad color temperature. They're advertised as warm white. A little hard to tell with the color balance of the camera there. It's not awful. Like, I have seen much worse warm white LEDs in my life. It's a little bit pinky. Like, it's not perfectly tungsten-y, but it's not bad. I think that's quite good. Well, before I run this to destruction, which I certainly will do, I want to try out some of these lenses that I got as well. So I'm just going to move that aside, let the camera remember how light works. I'm going to leave that running. We'll just see how toasty it gets. So I also got, and this is partly why I wanted to play with these, five different types of lenses that are nominally for this size of LED star. So I think that'll be fun to play with. So what have we got here? These are, I mean, they're all labeled, but they're not labeled very well. Five? I have the order. I can go back and look up exactly what they are, but I got specifically a range of sizes. So that's a 20-degree lens, or claims to be 30-degree lens. This is a 60-degree lens. I have sort of 3 in this like medium size style, and then a couple bigger ones. This is, I think, meant to be a 20-degree, 10-degree, and maybe a 5-degree. I'm not entirely sure. So what I probably will do is we'll fire these up, and assuming they work, I'm not going to point them on the LED through the lens directly into the camera, because that seems like a bad idea. Instead, I'm actually going to turn the lights down or off in here and shine them at the wall behind me. And that I think will give a better sense of their beam spread. So let's go wide to narrow and just see. I'm looking to learn a little bit about how these things actually fit and attach to the LED, and what their beam qualities actually are like. And, you know, from casual experimentation, do they melt when you expose them to a bright LED light? So let's see here. I'm going to, so I really just want to be conscious about like not shining super bright into the camera lens directly. So I'm going to give you this weird camera angle here as I test. I'm going to turn the LED off for a second so I can see what I'm doing. So it looks like that's meant to just nest down there. And I'm already seeing a problem with the way that I've soldered these wires, is they're very proud of the surface and it's interfering with the ability of the lens to really get down there. So let's touch this up real quick. Which might be a little tricky now that we're on this heat sink, but my iron is up very hot. And we'll just get these wires, we'll do a slightly better soldering job. We'll get them nice and down close to the surface. Maybe we'll even move them away from the center on their pads a little bit. And there, that's a little bit better. Now, before I turn it back on, let's just see. So you can see these lenses all have this like octagonal sort of whole star pattern that I think is meant to more or less fit over the LED emitter there. I don't know if it's meant to be flush to the base. Let's see if I can get it flush. Now, even with an unmolested LED, I can't really get down flush. So I think I'm as close as I'm gonna be. So Zoom back out here, and as we apply some power again, here, let's see. So I think now is the point where we're going to start. Oh yeah, getting flare on this camera from the LED down here. I'm going to turn some lights off so we can see this a little bit better. Let's see, what is still illuminating me here? Let's see. There's that. That's pretty good. So I'm just going to take and point. Got my LED here. So point at the back wall. Try and get a sense of spread. And with this 60-degree one, I mean, I guess I buy that it's 60 degrees. It's really hard to tell at that distance. It does seem to be doing a little bit of focusing. You can kind of see, actually, I can see it better on camera than with my eye, right? You can kind of see where that beam, as I wiggle the lens around, kind of is. So that's pretty successful. I wonder if we want to turn the power up on this just a little bit. If I turn this up to, now we're at about 6 watts. Let's see if that makes this any more clear. Yeah, so you can sort of start to see, like, that claims to be a 60-degree beam spread, and I would buy that. Yeah, all right, so that's a decent first test. Let's set that back in its bag, because they all look a little bit similar, so I'm trying not to mix them up too much. Let's grab our 30-degree lens. So this is, I'll reorient here a little bit. This is a similar form factor. It has a clear exterior. Ooh, I can smell something toasting. Let me turn the power back down for a little bit here. I think it's that that thermal tape burning in a little bit. So again, similar form factor, got a hole in the middle. This one has this clear exterior instead of solid black like the other one. I'm not quite sure why that is, but we'll see if it makes a difference. So I'm going to put that on our LED here. Huh. I'm not super convinced that that's what this is doing. That this is a 30-degree beam. Unless it's meant to go the other way? That doesn't make any sense. No. I mean, you can kind of see a circle of light there, but it's like, I think that's mostly because there is a hole in the middle of this thing. Well, I mean, maybe it's a 30-degree beam. It's very diffuse if it is. I'm not super duper impressed. All right, well, good to know. Let's move on to the 20-degree beam and see if we have any results. I guess we are... Let me pull up that 30-degree again. We're somewhat dimmer than the last time we gave that a shot. I mean, and by that I mean like in terms of total power output. So maybe I will put that lens back in and jack the power up again, just to try and be comparing apples to apples. Get you that full view. Oh yeah, it's a little bit better. I guess, I mean, without... It just seems like it's just blocking light. I don't think it's actually focusing anything. Let me turn that power back down again. So in just a moment ago, the LED tape is actually, the thermal tape is actually popping off of the heatsink because of the sort of spring action of these wires, and that we definitely do not want. So what I'm going to do is see if I can adjust these wires in such a way that it's causing them to press this into the heatsink, as opposed to trying to pull it away or remove some of that stress. Well, I mean, we're kind of we're kind of 1 for 2. Like, these 30-degree ones I would not buy again ever. Maybe they're not meant for this product. Like maybe the labeling on them was wrong. But let's try these nominally 20-degree ones that are just like the 60-degree ones we started with, except they have a slightly different... I'm a little bit more optimistic about these because they have... If this will focus... They have like a clear actual lens shape to them, which maybe means they'll act like a lens. Let's find out. I'll turn the... Oops. Oh, the wire slipped off of my lead there. All right, so now we're looking at like, jack up the power back up to like 5 watts of LED light, And with the back wall view, ooh. I mean, the quality of light is pretty good, just in terms of intensity. Yeah, that's not... I'm wondering if it's an issue with like the light not being in the focal point, like are the wires still getting too much in the way? Maybe we take another stab at fixing that. Because here, let's have a look at these. Like one thing I'm wondering is, you know, even if there's no wires there, can you fit these emitters all the way down into sort of the indent that is present on these lenses? And you can't really, is the thing. And I'm wondering, these lenses might all just be for a slightly different product, these small ones here at least, because, right, you really want that emitter to be right at the focal point of that lens, and there's a little bit of gap there that's making me think this is not correct, which is a shame. But that's all right. That's partly why I got them. And these were dirt cheap. I mean, these were like $1 or $2 a bag. So like, you know, if they worked, great. If they don't, now they're decorative. They're supposed to be used with a reflector. No, they're definitely integral. Just because of like the size of the, I don't want to show it in a bag. That's very silly. Just because of the size of the hole in the back, like it's meant to mount over an LED star chip. I wonder if they're meant to go on in lieu of this like epoxy bead lens that's on these. Like I wonder if that is what is screwing us up. I don't know if I can remove that without damaging these, but let's try. I mean, I have 10 of them. I think they were literally 86 cents. Well, that was easier than expected. If I do that, does that emitter fit into that notch? Not really. It's still just a little too big, although the emitting part of it might. Well, let's see. You only live once. Let's pop this epoxy bit off, if it'll come off. There we go. Ooh, got some exposed copper there. I think we might have killed this. That'd be a shame. Let's see if that still lights. I sort of doubt it. Yeah, nothing. Yeah, so that it ripped that LED apart in trying to take it apart. So that's a shame, but that's all right. That's why we have 9 more that were also 80 cents. So I'm just gonna pop the wires off of this one, and we'll just put another one in its place. I'm going to put a new piece of tape on there. All the leftover heatsink compound in here is clearly not doing me any favors for adhesion with this thermal tape. So before I fix this all the way down, let's see here. Which way do I want to come from? Like I'm gonna come as far out as I can and try and get this lens. Maybe I could switch wire types because this is a little chunkier than it has to be. There. Hey, Dave. No fire yet, and maybe we'll see how things go tonight. Hopefully no fire at all. But you know, you gotta use the algorithm for what it's worth. And by algorithm I mean what people come to see on the thing. Yeah, no fire, and haven't burned myself yet, which is also, that was the last time we did one of these burn-in tests, that was the problem, was the burning part, I suppose. Yeah, here, let me give you another tummy cam treat, and I will grab a little of our thinner wire, and see if I can get that lens any closer to the LED emitter itself, and we'll see how that goes. So this is just some of that like nylon-y, flexible wire that I've been using for the Demilight LED power feeds. I mean, this also will be a good test, right? This is meant to, in theory, carry up to an amp of power in the Demilight environment, and it rarely does. I'm rarely running anything that high, so we'll just see how that goes. Because we're certainly going to put at least an amp through it tonight. All right, so now that I'm free of this, I'll just do this on the bench here. Oh, here we go. I integrated the solder holders are now on the like wall of quick access tools, but I'm not thrilled with the size of the container that they're in. It makes it a little bit hard to like pull the solder holder out without like breaking into its two component parts. So I think I have to rethink how those are being stored on the wall. I like them being not on the bench, because though I use them a lot, they take up room and they're heavy. So I'm excited to get them away. I just don't know exactly where I'm storing them. Oh, let's see. Dave says used a few of those lenses. Ah, cool. In 1-inch stainless steel to a heatsink. Oh, and they're landscape lights. Oh, very cool. You know, LED Supply, who makes the more expensive LEDs that I have been using. Gosh, what was I saying? Oh, they make a similar version of, like, it's a very thin heatsink that's meant to go essentially inside of a tube. I think they mean it for like maybe flashlight applications. I'm not entirely sure. But that seems like a cool thing. Yeah, Thomas. They're burn-in tests. I don't think they're originally called burn-in tests because that's how I get burned. But maybe. I mean, they're accurate either way, I suppose. There's also, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole. I think it was must have been pre-quarantine, back when we were all so young. Investigating how the DIY lightsaber community sets up its resources. Because with the opening of the Star Wars theme park at Disney World, I have not been. There is you can buy a very nice, I'm just trying to get the thing off this tape, a very nice, personalized lightsaber prop that you can carry around the park, and it makes sounds and noises and colors and things, and that's awesome. But there has been for years and decades this, people making their own lightsabers, and there are people with sort of cottage businesses that if you want to buy, a lightsaber with this kind of handle and this kind of switch and, make it your own, you certainly can. And the cosplaying boom has only increased that. And so there are a couple, and I wish I could remember the names of these vendors. There's a couple that essentially are, you can buy these lightsabers from a number of people, but you can also, there's a couple of vendors who have created little ecosystems of interesting parts, hilts, reflectors, emitters, battery packs, so you can sort of cobble together your own. Or if you're like a maker, tinkerer type, you could buy these parts and use them as the foundation of your own. Super, super cool. All essentially, an LED emitter and some lensing. Dave, your niece works at the Star Wars theme park? That's cool. Is she a Jedi? I guess, or what's the equivalent of in costume characters? The Wookiees? Does she get to be a Wookiee or a Wookiee minder? All right, let's turn this guy on and see how. I guess before I turn this on, let's see how this. If it's a little better. These solder pads are right. Maybe you can see there. They're right where that lens wants to be on the thing, which is unfortunate. Makes me think that these are maybe sized for this size of emitter, but not for this form factor of circuit board. Like maybe these are intended for, and I'm sure they're meant for something like architectural, but you have a work light that has 100 of these, and each one has this stuck on top of it with adhesive, and then your electrical connections are much farther away, which makes total sense. These might not be fit for purpose for us. And what have I done here that's made this not? Oh, well, polarity matters. Why well, this one doesn't turn on. I should have done is test this with the power supply before I started the wires onto it, because I think I've killed this one as well. Bummer. All right, well, before I do the next one, so I guess pulling that epoxy off was a bad idea. It was what we call in the miniature moving light business a bad idea. Let's see if this one works. Yes, that one's still fine. Okay. Turn this off and we'll solder some leads to our third. We've already killed 2 out of the 10 stars that I've bought, which I think qualifies this evening as a success. Whether any of us end up with any injuries or not. I feel like this is a moral victory. We've managed to fry a couple dollars worth of electronics already, which is really, all I ever want to do on a Saturday night is hang out and make things go up in smoke. I'm wondering already if we're going to have this same fitment issue with the narrow lenses, which might torpedo this whole line of things. Let's see. Nate, hey, it's good to see you. Yes, no, you haven't. You're not time slipping. You're not, suffering from utter fatigue. No, I I got some new LEDs and lenses in the mail today, and I was like, oh, this would be a fun thing to play with tonight. And then it's been so long, maybe forever, since I've just I'll just turn the camera on and work on a thing and see what happens. And I know this is the kind of, heat and light based content that people, by people I mean the nerds like you, hi Tom, and not to name names, Thomas, Nate, Dave, Palmer, Chris, all the good people, but I was like, hey, this would be a fun thing, especially whether it goes up in smoke or not, which is always, I'm hoping not, be a fun thing to share with people, just to see. I don't know, it's not really an unboxing because there's nothing to unbox, and it's not a PlayStation, it's LEDs. Hang a bit here, something strange is happening with my monitor, and there we go. Yes, maybe to you on stream too. I don't know if everything got very warm in color temperature there for a second, or if it was just me. But my night mode for my my monitor kicked in, and all of a sudden I was drifting into I have it set to a very aggressive color setting, so that let's see, that's not what I want. I want neither of these, I guess. So that it really gets very warm in terms of color temperature on my monitors late at night, so I can try and get some sleep. And it was it gets blood red when it gets too serious. So crisis averted. I don't know if you saw it or if it was just a little thing that I was experiencing. But we're all fixed now. So Nate, one of the first things I said is I did basically no planning for what we were going to do today. I was I'm going to turn some things on and turn on the camera and see what happens. Well, that fits better. So this is, here, I'm going to just throw away the dead parts. There's no reason to keep them. Here's a non-soldered LED star, and there's the lens. So it actually fits really nicely without any solder dots. And I can kind of see the clearance that I would have to obey on my solder pads to make that happen. Although this might be close. Yeah, that actually works quite well. So this is, this is nominally, this is a whatever lens degree that says. In fact, this is going to be awful visual streaming, but I can look up on my phone what these are. Let's see here. What degrees are you? View all orders. Oh no, it's locked me out. That's the worst. Well, I guess we'll never know. I think it's, let's see, what did Dave guess, 25? I'd buy that. 20, 25, something? Seems plausible. Let's turn it on and maybe we can tell for ourselves. So I'm going to turn my current limiting back down. I'm going to turn on the power. Nothing. Why nothing? Why turn on? Oh, my current limit's too low. There we go. All right, so there's that guy. Just tighten the camera there. Again, trying not to shine this directly into the camera, because I think that would go poorly for the camera. Ooh, okay, this one is showing a lot more promise. Let me take you back to over the shoulder cam, and we'll point some lights at it. And oh, I was like, what's flaring on the camera? It's the LED, of course. So this is, let me just crank the power up a little bit. This is about 5 watts of LED light. Ooh, that's pretty good. It doesn't have quite the same hard edge fidelity as the 3-up, the expensive Cree LED star lenses do. And their 1-up stars have the single emitter LEDs have a really nice crisp hard edge. But I think this is in terms of focus, really quite good. Now, oh yeah, so one thing I was going to question is like, is it focusing or is it just cutting off the beam? But if I take the lens out of the way, look how much dimmer that wall gets. And I put the lens in, take it out, put it in. Yeah, so like that's a non-trivial amount of focusing, which is very cool. And the other cool thing about these lenses in particular is they're small. They're like, you know, let's see how small. What's the diameter on these? Oop, I could show you them, I suppose. It's a visual medium. These are 21 millimeters across. So that's a really reasonable size to fit into. Hang on, just get one of these little lights as a sample. I mean, these obviously don't have the right emitter in them to try right now, although maybe they could. But like in terms of the scale you're already working at, like that's a pretty good fit. In fact, I think with a small amount of modification, this would go, oh, maybe even none, maybe no modification. Oh, it's like they were designed for that lens. They're not, and in fact, I could probably use an extra millimeter in there as they pop right out. But that's really quite tasteful. I wonder if there are any other beam degrees in this form factor, because that's really nice. And 25 degrees is a pretty reasonable beam width for something like this. I mean, turn it back on for a second, thinking about, you know, let's see here, what's the best way to think about demonstrating this? So, you know, one of the like use cases for something like this, I imagine is, you know, your like tabletop like light lab, right? It's a you at your educational institution, you have a or your your office or wherever. It's like a little mini moving light show, right? So 25 degrees. Let's say your grid is at about 2 feet. Looking at the table there, and I'll put the calipers here for just a sense of scale. Get that lens on there. You know, you get a beam width that's, you know, approximately. It's funny, you can see there's like a shadow, like the I would say like this needs to be bench focused. You know, I would buy that. I would say it's 25 degrees. It's a very loose beam as a flood. I wonder also. I don't recall, Dave. If you're poking around the internet, maybe you can help me out. This one has this sort of rough crenellated frosted front. Which it might be a 30 in this form factor. I'd be curious because the last one I'm going to test tonight is this now, or maybe this is the 15, or maybe it's a 5. I don't know. But this has a clear lens and a smooth front, and I'm wondering if this is going to give us a slightly sharper beam, because I think that's a little bit more interesting. I mean, these are also definitely bigger, right? Like this is a fairly significant increase in size, although that's kind of a fun look, just to have a giant lens sticking out the front. What's the fixture that I'm thinking of that has that as a form factor? That's like was one of the original beam type units. You know, the Sharpies really cleaned things up, but there was some light. Maybe it's the Mac 3s that had. It wasn't the Mac 3s; those were just giant. I don't know what I'm thinking of, to be honest. But like they had this goofy, like big fat lens nobule sticking out the front. Maybe it'll come to me. But in the meantime, let's put this big boy on a light here. And then the fit's pretty good. It's a little here. Here's my scratch one. It's like when you look at the size of the LED star compared to the base of the thing, there really isn't room for the wires there to go to like attach to those two pads and still fit inside. So if this ends up being the lens that I like, I mean, A, of course, the 3D prints have to be modified, but B, going to one of the larger star PCBs might be good, just so I could access the solder pads, because this is not going to be a perfect fit. But that said, let's fire it up and see how it looks. Ooh, okay, yeah, here, all right, let's go to over-the-shoulder cam, and let's take a look at that. Yeah, now we're talking about a beam. That's pretty nice. It's a little hard to say. I feel like I'm losing a fair amount of intensity total, but that's just seat of my pants, like looking at the rest, what's illuminating the rest of the room at that point. Yeah, these are okay. These are okay. I wish, looking like they're a very soft beam, and the camera's making them look a little bit harder. It's overexposing. It's making the beam look a little bit sharper than I think it actually is in real life. The other LEDs we've been playing with, like the 1-up stars and so on, have a lens option, which just gives you such a nice sharp beam. So like these guys and the Carclo LEDs. He says these guys, putting it in a place that you can't actually see. And I won't play with all of these tonight because we've certainly played with them before. But little guys like this and this I think is meant for this ecosystem. Let's see here. Yeah. So like that's the Carclo equivalent. And already you can tell just by how sharp the image of the LED die itself is underneath there, just how sharp that beam's going to be. Here, I'll tell you what, I won't play with all of these, but just for like a point of comparison. And like now this is, these lenses are, I think, $2 a piece, and the LED Star is like $3 a piece. So like there is definitely a difference in in price. You really are getting what you're paying for, it turns out. Which is the whole point of this experimentation, right? It's like, is this cheapo product, a better value, let's say, than the expensive product? Now I'm gonna turn the current limiting down again, of course. This is my opinion on most of these things. Like, it's almost never the case that the cheapo product is as good as the expensive one, but sometimes you can find a product that is better value for your money, right? You pay a third as much, but you get half the value or something. Let me turn some lights off. Let me turn myself around. So this is the LED Supply single LED Star with one of the Carclo lenses. This is, I think, a 10-degree lens. And I hope you can tell, it looks like it's showing it well on camera, just how much less, how little flare there is on this beam. Like that, if I pointed at the stuffed owl bear up there, for example, you're really not getting any flare on the bookshelf. And as I point at the bookshelf or at the bat phone, right, there is a defined edge to the beam. Whereas now, I guess as long as we're waving things about, and it's already getting a little bit hot, so that's, not great. I wonder how the expensive LED with the inexpensive lens looks. It's actually not horrible. There's a little bit more flare and a little less definition, and clearly, so one of the nice things about these, let that cool for a second here, about these Carclo lenses is they come in an ecosystem where they have a holder that is meant to mate to the notches in the PCB itself, right? So I've got these 4 little pegs on the bottom here, and they mate to the notches in the outside of this LED Star, right? So once those sort of notch in, they don't sort of clip, but they sort of seat affirmatively. And once they're there, you know that LED die is exactly where you want it to be. Whereas using something like this, which you might be able to buy, or I certainly could 3D print a holder for, but trying to get this into the right place is kind of it's a wiggly matter. But again, it's like you get what you pay for. It turns out. So let's try this again. Now this is cooled a little bit. So this is the nice LED Star from LED Supply and the Carclo lens. And yeah, so I'm just having like what I would call bench focus issues. Yeah, it's just not quite. I guess the bonus test we could do is one of our original cheapy lenses, the smaller lenses with the nice LED Star, to see if that's viable. I don't know that makes a whole lot of sense because the savings would be mostly in the LEDs and not in the lensing. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of focusing going on there. This is better than I think the cheap LEDs were. But then again, this is a single emitter. This is a single white diode. So its forward voltage is about 3 volts. Whereas those 10-watt LED stars are essentially four diodes in series in a single package. So they're, I think sort of by their nature are not going to have as good of, they're farther from being a single point, if that makes sense. So mixed results this evening, I think, is the crux of it. Let me hook this guy back up and give some final thoughts. Like I said, I don't plan to go for 4 hours this evening. Mary, I don't know if you could hear the beeping through my microphone, but I heard the oven beep a little bit ago. My wife, Mary, who I think most of you have seen or met before, made an incredible smelling garlic and butternut squash risotto. It's been in the slow cooker for hours, and if that beeping means it's done, then I've got well, not a timeline. I just got a stomach because I'm a human being. But let me turn this guy back on one more time. We'll crank up the forward voltage, the power supply. There we go. And we will one last time put the variety of lenses on them and see. I mean, it's a nice color. You might be looking a little bit weird with how I have the color temperature set up on the streaming software here, but it's a little bit green. It's not a perfect color, but again, for an 80-cent LED chip, it's pretty good. Let me just hold the. This is our cheapy lens. It's not bad. It's just not like if I pointed at the owlbear, I'm getting the owlbear, but I'm also getting a lot of that wall. And similarly, if I this is our slightly wider lens. It's better than nothing, I would say. And let's put the Carclo lens on here and see if it's a lens quality issue. And obviously this doesn't have the sort of registration dots the other one did. Yeah, I mean, there's also something to be said for like the other one is a single emitter source. And so having these, you can almost see, at least I can, if you look just sort of at the whiteboard there, you can kind of see, I think, a dim vertical shadow moving back and forth there, which I think is probably a dividing line between two of the LED, like the diodes themselves. We're getting, and you can kind of see the four different squares of the emitters on the wall. Or at least I can kind of see the four different squares of the emitters. So we're really fighting the fact that it's not a single point source going through that lens, which maybe is always going to be an issue. Oh, hey, Chris, how are you? Yeah, I was saying to these folks, I got some new LEDs in the mail today. I got excited about them, and I was like, well, if I'm going to turn them on and test them, then I should probably do it on cam, because it sounds like fun, and, if the worst comes to the worst, then you can all be, I guess, witnesses in my insurance case when the house burns down. Anyway. I'm throwing the Carclo lens back on the single source LED one more time, just to see what that, I should turn my forward voltage down. Because as we discovered, I don't remember whatever day we were building the first versions of 0.94 was, there's a limit to how much heat we can, of course, sort of, here, I'm gonna roll out of the way so hopefully we'll focus on that back wall. Oops, just popped out of the power supply clip there. Get in there. Yeah, I mean, look at that beam is just so much better. And it's hard to say that it's not. So one of the reasons I went looking for new LED stars is this single source LED we've been playing with just now is it's a single diode, right? It's one, zoom you in here. Oh gosh, oh no. A single point emitter, 4 volts of about 3 volts, which I was going, is that a problem? I don't know. I don't know that it is. Hang on. Maybe this thing I've been imagining is an issue is not. The limitation I was going to say is to do with the AL8860 or the AL8861, which are the LED driver we're using. But I don't know that they have a minimum. They have a minimum supply voltage of 4.5 volts. I don't know that they have a minimum LED voltage. Because what we discovered when we were looking at the maximum amount of power we could put out of one of those, 3-in-1 chip LED stars, is that after about 5 watts, we were melting the solder off of the star, and it was unsustainable to put out more than about 5 watts of light with that heatsink. Oh, I know what it is. So this is the limitation. So this has a forward voltage of about 3 volts. So if we want to push ourselves to 5 watts, that means we need to put like an amp and a half through these, which these will, with the heatsink, take. The problem is the AL8860, I believe, maxes out at, yeah, here we go. So the TSOT 25, which is this little form factor, which is, just grab the circuit board and show it off. Maybe it's in my test fixtures. Ooh. All right, so TSOT 25, we said. Yeah, so the AL8860 comes in 2 different packages. This little one is the TSOT 25, and then this unpopulated footprint here is the MSOP 8. What is that? Yeah, MSOP 8, which is a slightly larger package with a slightly different footprint, although they're exactly the same internally. This form factor can handle up to 1 amp. This one can handle up to an amp and a half, and we said to push a single star LED to 5 watts to sort of give ourselves the maximum possible power with a bunch of asterisks, right? Because we know we could find ways to get more power. I guess what I'm saying is with the current footprint that these are mostly getting stocked with, this will only do 3 watts. With the larger footprint chip, we could push it to 5. Or 4.5 watts, I guess, depending. I'm just trying to optimize for brightness here. So what allows the 3 diode chips to go to a higher wattage is they have a higher forward voltage, right? So we have a higher voltage, so for the same amount of power, we have a lower current, right? So 10 or 11 volts at 1 amp is 10 watts versus 3 volts at 1 amp is 3 watts. So I was looking specifically for LED stars that had multiple diodes in series because that gives us a higher forward voltage, which means a lower current. And I was intrigued by these because they are closer to being single source. But I think the moral of the story is that for good light quality, they're just not quite, at least up to what I have been hoping for. But this is not the end of the road for these. Like, I do wonder if I could get the lens really. I mean, maybe I can. Let's say if I get the lens really down flush to the circuit board and see if that makes a difference. Maybe we did this earlier already, and I'm distracted by thoughts of risotto. I hear the kitchen timer beeping again. But, oops, what's happening? 3, maybe my current limit is too low? Oh no, well, why are you not turning on, my little LED? My little LED is not turning on. But why? Why are you not turning on? Did I destroy it? I hope I didn't destroy it. Well, that's weird. But I might have. Because it sure doesn't seem to be, I guess my current limit could be really too low. On a heatsink this big, we have a little bit of headway, right, in case it starts to go. No, we're voltage limited. How's it looking in there? Give me, I think we're going to wrap up soon. Mary just very sneakily, cracked the door and was like, The risotto's ready. It was like holding a spoonful. I don't think you need to, like, risotto makes an awful mess of this business. I don't think you need to see that. But yeah, we'll head toward the end here so I can go see what's been smelling so good for like the past 4 hours. Those are for the Cree T6 U2 XML. Dave, you know, I wish I could pull up either on my computer or my phone what these actual parts are, but I seem to have. Well, maybe I'm gonna take one guess at my password. It seems to have logged me out. Oop, here we go. Sign in. Hey, here we go. Yeah, all right. Well, now you're just watching me look at things on my phone, which I know is what everyone is here for. But these LEDs, I should have just put the model number in here. Yes, Dave, exactly. Those are the Cree XML. No, Cree, so in many of those similar product listings, there are T6 XMLs. These are, actually, I guess I don't know that they're different. Here, maybe I can show you on the computer now. I probably won't be able to log in here either, but I can type in some keywords. Cree XML XML T6. Yeah, so if not exactly that, Dave, then very close. Yeah, so of these two options here, I got the 12-volt emitter, which looks like, and this is not exactly the product, but is very close to. And they come in all kinds of different LED stars, and actually you get just the raw chip, which might be kind of fun to play with, right? We could make our own circuit board that had the high-powered LEDs on them. That might be kind of fun. Let's see here. Yeah, so there's all kinds of different lensing for them, but I think what's screwing me up is that these are all meant for a non-epoxy sealed star that's just a raw chip. Although these are also bubbled, so maybe not. Maybe there's just something I'm missing out on. Some 9-degree lens. Ooh, that would be fun. Some real tight beams. It's like these, they just don't, and maybe like they. Oh, I guess that fits okay. So like what's like that? The medium beam lens fits okay over the LED there. This form factor is just like you can't solder anything to the PCB because the lens holder is so big. So maybe I just should have ordered these with a bigger PCB. I'm sure that is an option. Yeah, for example, so I bought the ones that were in the 16mm form factor. Maybe I should have bought the 20mm form factor. I was just hoping to save a little bit of space, but this is basically what I have been using, is the 20mm ones, or 21mm, depending on exactly how you measure them. But 20mm seems to be a relatively nominal size. So yeah, so maybe a good try. And Dave, if you said you found them on Amazon, maybe for like just reordering Cree XML T6. If there's a oh well, they go into flashlights, do they? They apparently are popular for flashlights. Let's see here. If I can get $9 a piece, that's more than I want to pay. Oh yeah, and look, you can buy the module that has the flashlight driving and current limiting right on the back. Yeah, that's what this market is. I see. Well, I probably won't buy a single, $27 one. I'll do another slow order, and when they come in, we'll play with them then. So a partially successful test. We learned some things. I do like the color temperature on these. I think they're good for a wash fixture. Or a work light or anything like that. I just think that this exact form factor with this exact lensing right now is not quite the right thing. But fun to give it a try. Hey, Cookie! Let's see. Did we establish that I destroyed these? I think we did. But let's give the people what they want. Let's cook one of these, huh? And then we'll call it a night. What does Thomas say? Tried making a reflector for a 25,000 lumen LED with a PETG and some aluminum tape. The light itself melted the PETG. Oh my gosh, yes. Did you have a separate heat sink on there, Thomas, or were you just running with the PCB directly in the PETG? All right, let's, I think that one is dead. We'll come back and test it later. Since these are now more or less sacrificial, I feel less bad about just destroying one. And let's use some slightly beefier wire, huh? Instead of that little like 24 gauge stuff. I think this will be okay for a short run. And let's just trim these a little bit just to minimize heat loss. Cookie, I've been saying to the fine folks here, I had no plans for this evening. I just got some fun parts in the mail today. And I was like, well, if I'm going to fire these LEDs up and see if they catch on fire or see what happens, I might as well, you know, do it on camera and see what happens. So tomorrow's stream, which I think I put on the schedule earlier today, about how to remotely access your Raspberry Pi so you can put it in a useful and interesting place, but not have to have a monitor hooked up to it directly to do interesting things with it. That'll be tomorrow night at the usual 7 p.m. time, but this is just a bonus. We're just like, I don't know, hanging out, making things, having a good old time. That's a serious heatsink there, Thomas. 190 millimeters diameter. So we're talking like a saucer's worth of heatsink. That's cool. Is that a product made for? Is it like an LED, high power LED heatsink specifically? That sounds like one of those like made for an industrial work light products. We got back in the before time, I don't remember when, at the museum I work for, we replaced the 575 watt source for PAR work lights in our main area with some LED work lights, which are much brighter and much cooler and great. But this essentially they are, you know, a giant aluminum heatsink with an LED on the front of it. And a little bit of protection over the LED, a little bit of clear Lexan, and a plug and a yoke, and that's it. And some, like, I guess a minor power supply in there. Although I don't think it's direct AC rectified. I think there is some kind of like cheapy regulated power supply in there. God, so this thermal tape, I love that it's cheap. I love that it does its job. I find it very hard to peel this stupid backing off of it. So you can just, this is now just a struggle stream. You can watch me try and figure out how tape do. Okay. We're so close. Okay. Okay, we're good. All right, we're there. We did it. We got this thing. Okay, so now we stick this down. We hook up our pure suppler. I guess we check our voltage on our pure suppler. Yes, we're good. We stick it down. We turn the voltage up. Do we have light? Yes, very good. Yes. Okay. So now we are. Turn our current limiting down. Yeah, I got that tape. Thank you, Chris. Turn the current limit down, turn our voltage limiting up, and we'll just see. I know we've done this before, but like it's always fun to see how hot we can get with these things. So this is just, you know, maybe a 60 millimeter by 30 millimeter by 40 millimeter heatsink. I can get the LED to stay down on it. That would be good. Ooh, already getting a little toasty. This might be a bad idea, but I'm going to grab a non-conductive stick, aka a barbecue skewer, to help hold this star on the heatsink. Because if it pops off, it's by the time we get to the higher power levels, it's just going to absolutely fry. And hopefully we don't light the stick on fire. Well, Thomas, it looks like you said something interesting after staring into this dot for just a couple seconds. I'm blind in the center of my vision now, so I will read the thing you're saying about LEDs or something in just a moment. But I can see Cookie voting for fire, which I appreciate. Okay, so this is approximate. So my bench power supply doesn't have a direct power measurement, so it's just got voltage and current. So I'm going to be interpolating a little bit, but this is about 6 watts. So let's go higher. All right, so that's about, oh, Yeah, all right. That was cool. So here's 6 watts, right? As I turn it up, right, that is 12 watts. Can you tell the color temperature is changing there? Because I can. Here, I'm going to... color temperature is locked on the overhead camera. It is. I think it is locked on my face as well. But if you turn... As we turn the current up, and the thing gets hotter, it gets dimmer. Yeah, I need one of those, like, text-to-speech things that, like, kicks an automatic... Oh! There it goes. Oh, there's the fire. Hey, there it is. Well, now we're pulling about 100 milliwatts, although it's still glowing, which is kind of impressive. But, oh, yeah, you could, I'm starting to be able to see again. Yeah, you could call me on someone can call me on the bad phone and just narrate the chat to me, but I can see okay now. Or at least it's starting to come back. So this is now, I'm no longer current limiting on the power supply. We're just sitting here at 15 volts times 7 milliamps. So some poor little bit of silicon is hanging on in here, and just glowing very sadly in the dark. But it looks like we only got to like 1.5 watts, or like maybe 15 watts on this, which is not as much as we have gotten to in the past. I'm a little disappointed, although for an 80-cent LED, I guess I can't be too surprised. And as my vision starts to return, ooh, you know what's kind of nice? This would be very, I can see, so like looking at this directly is kind of hard, but looking at it on my monitor, like in the streaming software, is a little bit easier. So maybe I point the overhead camera at the chat and look at it on the streaming. Oh, then you have to look at your own chats on stream, and I don't think anyone wants to do that. But you can see like the burning inside of the diodes there. Those two little blackened dots right in there, and right in there, that's where the smoke came from, for those who saw smoke, and I certainly did. So yeah, so not a whole lot of heat capacity in these. I think we pushed the 3-up ones, and this is one of the advantages, like if you're having a higher voltage LED product, right? When we pushed these as high as they would go, I think on this same heatsink, we got to like 5 amps on this thing. We pushed like 50 watts out of it. And partly that's helped by, it's a slightly larger PCB, but also we're spreading that heat out over 3 separate dies, three dispersed separate. That gives us a lot more chance to suck heat out before it can build up enough to fry the thing. Whereas when we start to package them all in what I guess is the T6 packaging style that AliExpress is selling, there's just not a chance to suck enough heat out of the thing. Well, good. We had a little fire, and the barbecue skewer, the stick was not a bad idea. I mean, maybe it was a bad idea. It wasn't a fire-causingly bad idea. But yeah, having proven this is kind of like a middling solution as far as like a product goes, and like I looked a little bit at its heat capacity and its color temperature and these various lenses, which they're okay. I think more experimentation with different size stars might be interesting, but I think I'm going to put them away for now until those the new star PCBs come in, because they just don't quite seem to be the right thing with this star. So these go in as I'm thinking about like what happens next on the shelves of Demilight stuff back here. Ooh, and I have one last thing to tell you about up here off camera before I close out. These are going to go, the lenses are going to go in the future experiments bin, but I think these LEDs are going to go in the past experiments bin that I raid for like future scrap and experiments and stuff too. But it's like I don't really see these being quite the product that goes into future stuff. But that's great. I mean, like the whole order, I can tell you the whole order, which was all of 10 of these LEDs, all of the lensing, so 4 of the larger lenses, 3 or 4 dozen of the smaller lenses in total. How much did I pay for all of this total? I paid with shipping $27. And 9 of that was the LEDs themselves. So, like $27, that's a decent experimental price for 6 products that I thought might be great. Turns out they're okay. But I feel pretty good about that. Yeah, fun. The last thing before I wrap up and go get me some of that risotto life, which I like. I don't know what's happening there, but it's wafting. Like it's all of a sudden there was this wave of garlic a moment ago, or maybe it's just my like sense of smell coming back after inhaling LED fumes. Did a fair amount of reorganization this week in the shop, which was very exciting. Move things around. Let's see what's going to be. I'm running out of buttons, but oh gosh, what's going to be the best way to show? Probably this. So one of the things I did, and I know I have not done a full tour before, but you'll see it's looking extra dextery in the background here. So this back here on the shelf is the covering for the old 3D printer. That's the Maker Select V2 that used to be up on the very top shelf, which is now the home of various reference materials, including the big book of RDM commands, which I've had out so much and was living in a stupid spot on that back shelf there. So now I can actually like see it and get to it. And this especially dextery part, this is where the Prusa Mini is going to go when it comes. I did some curbside pickup from the Container Store today and got another, well, that's a light, but got another shelf, got some brackets, used some of this window insulation just to make a very rudimentary enclosure. I'm not doing ABS in it, but I find like minimizing airflow even with PLA and PET helps quite a bit. So I think that'll be quite nice. That should hopefully ship sometime next week and be here soon. And I got notification today. Yeah, Chris, exactly. Room for the new printer. Got the notification today as well that the next version, the next iteration of the Demilight boards, the actual working 0.95 boards, and the Pocket RDM first batch of like test PCBs should be arriving on Tuesday of next week, which is great because it's going to give me a little bit, like this coming Tuesday, give me a little bit of time to experiment with them, play with them, and then show them off on next Sunday night's stream, which I think will be fun. Yeah, assuming they work. Even if they don't work, I think there'll be things to like. I don't think things not working has ever really stopped us, right? Like that won't be an impediment to like just playing around and seeing why they don't work and where I went wrong. What do we do next? But I think that'll be a real good time. The following Monday, I am actually going to be back in physical person at my job full-time 40 hours a week for the first time in a while, which is great news. Like things are moving in the right direction, at least here in Chicago where I am, which means it's possible to go back to work. So that's good. But that does mean like time gets a little bit more crunched on my end. So we'll see. Last time I went from those of you who've been here for ages, Chris and Nate and a few others, right? I started streaming basically, or doing the electronics bash side of things, like the class sort of side of things, when we shut down the first time, every single weekend. And when I went back to work the first time, doing a class type thing every single week was too much, right? It's exhausting to be in the world right now, regardless of like just that shift. So I went back to doing sort of every other week and then filling in sort of the alternate weeks, like with this Demilight stuff happened after a while. So all I'm saying is we'll see if every single week is still a sustainable thing. I think there's a good chance that much like the last couple weeks have shown, I probably will play a little bit of Calvin Ball with what each week is. I really like this being a regular Sunday night thing. It might just be that like class Demilight is not sustainable, and it probably will skew more toward like Demilight make a thing than class, because just that amount of like structured brain thinking is something I don't always have energy for after work. I mean, as far as I know, all y'all nerds work, you're all nerds, this I know. But if you work in a nerdy endeavor, or you're in school for a nerdy thing, right? Sometimes after 8 hours of like, okay, how am I going to get this code base to talk to this serial driver that's communicating with the RS-422 circuit that in this old, like, it's that exact same kind of problem solving that I love to do with my own personal projects. And sometimes doing it for like 8 hours a day means you just run out of steam for that stuff at home, right? It's the curse of having a job that speaks to your interests. So I feel very lucky about it. Anyway, I'm just rambling now, and I think it's because I'm experiencing what scientists call, I think, risotto deficiency. So I'm gonna go do that. Thanks. Like I say, I just kind of took a flyer. I was like, I don't know, I'll turn on the camera and make some things and make some smoke and see what happens. lovely to see all these cool nerd faces that we know and like. I'll be back tomorrow at the usual time, 7 p.m. on Sunday, to, like I say, talk about, if you have your Raspberry Pi, which is we're doing sort of the Raspberry Pi series of classes finally continues, in a place where you don't want to have a mouse and keyboard and monitor hooked up to it, ways to access the GUI, the command line, and the Pi itself in a remote location somewhere else in your physical dwelling, and we'll probably touch briefly on the other side of the internet. How would you use that Raspberry Pi and control it? So yeah, so that'll be a fun time. Anyway, you're all great. You're all nerds. Stay safe. Wash your hands. I'll see you tomorrow? Maybe? Huh?